Well, in most ways, with one glaring exception, the Roosevelt administration was much more careful and respectful of civil liberties than the Wilson administration, which ran roughshod over it, had been during World War I. You didn't have the mass jailing of dissenters as you did. You didn't have the stigmatization of European ethnic groups. In World War I, Germans were, you couldn't even speak the German language. It was barred in many states. Germans were persecuted. In World War II, the government made a sharp distinction between the German people and the German government. They said, we're not fighting the German people, and German Americans are just as loyal as anybody else. Italian Americans are just as loyal, even though we're fighting the Italian government. So the government promoted liberty, it promoted tolerance, it promoted pluralism, and now, of course, there was much less dissent in the United States in World War II. You didn't have organized groups opposed to American involvement the way you did in World War I. Now, of course, the glaring exception to the respect for civil liberties was the treatment of Japanese Americans. Over 100,000 of them were rounded up, most of them living on the West Coast, and sent to these, well, what were called concentration camps or internment camps, deprived of all their basic liberties, purely on racial grounds. Nobody was ever convicted of espionage or of sabotage or of aiding the Japanese war effort or anything like that. But the government just assumed that if you were Japanese, you had a racial bond to the Japanese government and you were not trustworthy. 2/3 of those people were actually American citizens, but they still were deprived of all their basic civil liberties by being forced into these camps. No trial, no habeas corpus, no charges against any individual person. And, so this was a massive violation of civil liberties for one particular hated ethnic group during the war.